Hey, everybody. We got an exciting roundtable for you guys today. I'm super excited about it. We're going to put up all our logos and stuff. We're going to introduce the great panel I have brought together to explain this. But first, guess what? Starting this week, we have cool new intros for all the shows.
It's that time again to have an honest, unfiltered conversation with creators. This is Creators Roundtable.
All right, everybody. We're going to go around the table. Everyone's going to introduce themselves. We're going to start with Josh. Go ahead, Josh. Tell them who you are.
Hey everybody, my name is Josh Lyman. I have been working in independent comics as well as some higher tiers of that for going on probably about a decade now. And I've been a full-time illustrator for the last 8 years. And I'm kind of just the middleman guy. I'm kind of always going to be in the middle and get a little perspective on all sides of these things. So happy to be here today.
And we're next on our esteemed panel. We have, or not panel, but roundtable. We have David. How do you say your last name so I get it right? Whalen? Okay, cool.
Whalen. Yeah, I'm David Whalen. I'm the owner of Correct Handed Comics, and we produce multiple comic books throughout the year. We have an ongoing series called The Offspring that's an action suspense thriller, and also one-shots and 4-issue miniseries and 100-plus graphic novels. And you can find us all at correcthandedcomics.com.
And we have JD. JD, tell them who you are.
How you doing, everyone? My name is JD Calderon, and I'm the writer and creator of the Oswald Chronicles and Tall Tales, and from Dreamweaver Press. That's who I am. Long time indie guy.
All right, we're here today to talk about two different sides of the industry. First, what is success? What does that mean to be successful in the comic book industry? And the other side of it, we're going to be talking about jealousy, both what we might feel and definitely what people feel towards us. So we're gonna open it up to right away to just talking about that. For each one of you, what does success mean? For me, it'll be being able to not only afford doing all the shows, not only being able to afford to live off of it, but afford to continue to create, all just on the money produced by that projects or projects that are involved in it. So all under the umbrella of Written Sins Comics, which is now under Advocate Comics. So to me, that's success. I haven't obtained it yet, but I'm working towards it right now. Josh?
Well, I think I'm kind of in the middle ground. Once again, I think that success is very subjective depending on where you are, goal-wise. For me, my first level of success was, hey, I wanted to get published with any form of like top label, top 5, top 10. And then, while that was going on, I was working full-time jobs and not really being successful as an illustrator at the same time, but I was like, I'm published. That's all that matters. But then I migrated and I changed. And now, like I said before, I've been a full-time. My art pays all of my bills for the last 8 years. And that's just one of those things where, yeah, I've had to put some things aside, put some publishing gigs aside and here and there. But like, that's my current level of success. But now I want that next level where it's like, hey, I'd like to, start making books and just be able to stay home a little bit, have some sort of recurring income. I think the ideal dream for anybody who might be working with indie comics or anything is the Kevin Eastman or the Todd McFarlane for the high ideals. We want to become what they were, and then transition into the point where, hey, we don't have to go to, a Comic-Con, or we don't have to plug every single day, a little less stress, kind of what you were touching on, where it's like, hey, there's no worries or burdens about, whether or not you paid for your event or, can pay for your rent.
And you don't necessarily have to go to every small show.
No, of course not.
David?
Yeah, I agree with everything Josh just said. I think as a teacher, as an art teacher, I see it from a different view where I actually am trying to using comics in the classroom, giving comics out a little leg up in the classroom to be able to show these kids how to be able to see and understand the world around them. So my hope is at some point in the next 20 years, I make the next great comic book creator that can continue drawing and creating comic books like we are. I would say personally for myself, I take my successes one step at a time, where I'm happy if I'm happy with the way a book came out, if I'm happy with the way a panel came out, if I'm happy with the way if people are responding to the stories that I'm creating. Of course, the goal is to be able to make a bazillion dollars, but those little goals in between, like what's that famous speech? Start with making your bed first, and then all the other successful things or all the achievements will follow along with that. So right now, I'm trying to make my bed first and get to all those other achievements as I go. And again, hopefully, just like Josh was saying, the dream is to be able to pay your bills and be able to do some other fun stuff with the money you make from comics. But right now, I'm really just happy with creating and getting the books and ideas that I have out in my brain out to the public, and building an audience in the funnest, best way that I possibly can.
And JD.
Well, my idea of success, I think, is a little different. I've been in the game for a little while, and I actually spent several years, probably about 4 or 5 years in the 90s, where I lived off of my creations. And, you know, I enjoyed that. And I was primarily working for somebody else at the time. And it was fun, but it's not necessarily something I want to do. So success for me is being able to produce the work I want to produce and share it out with as many people as I can possibly reach, and generate enough capital to pay my art, to pay everyone involved. So that's how I view it.
And look, I mean, ultimately, this is why we didn't do this as a panel and it had to be a roundtable. I don't think we can establish a finishing line for the industry. That's just not fair. It's really not. There are people out there who do this just simply for love, and they are doctors, lawyers. They don't need money. Some of them even retired at this point because they've done well on Wall Street, or been a firefighter or an EMT or a cop, and they're just expressing themselves. They put in their 20, and this is a passion thing. It's not fair for us. But I'm going to ask each one of you individually, what is a goal that you have? Not necessarily that you have to live to, but if I make it big, this is the first thing I'm going to do. Everyone has that. It's kind of like the wish list, the first thing on the wish list when you finally made it. So just to keep it fun and light, let's talk about that. For me, my wish list is real simple. It would just be buying a house. Nothing fancy. I would deliberately not get something fancy, something no one wanted to break into. You know, like something that just looked average. Nothing too fancy in the garage or in the driveway, because you don't want to invite anything. But I would deck out the tech inside. Like, I would have the bat office. You know what I mean? Where it's like 5 computers. I don't even need 3 of them, but they're just there. I would do that. And a giant screen for some reason in the middle of the room that I shouldn't be watching with all the screens. That's it. That's my wasteful moment. What about you, Josh?
Well, it sounds odd, but I think the very first thing I would end up doing is taking care of my student loan debt. That's a whole rant for another topic on another time. But long story short, one of the things I've had to stop doing is that particular payment, and with the current issue that's going on. But I think I would probably do that. But ideally, if it came down to what would be the first thing I would want to have, probably I would want like a brand new, like Toyota Tacoma or Toyota Tundra. I've been talking about this for probably about 3 or 4 months now. And I've been mulling it for about 2 or 3 years. It's a reliable vehicle. It's large enough, and it's perfect for if I need to be on the road all the time. You know, if things came to what it was, or I could just, I could just be comfortable. Something in that sense. I would, if it came down to a physical representation of success, I would probably get that, and then I'd probably paint it a color that's not a standard, like purple or something, like a nice dark purple that just sheens like slightly red or something. Who knows?
Sounds good. So what do you think? What's on that list, David? What do you got?
I don't know. I'm a pretty simple guy. Probably a reliable car, and make sure the house isn't falling apart. If I had to really pick something, it'd probably be a pool in the back for the kids. To be able to give them one more thing to be able to do in the summer and all that stuff, and that'd be fun. But really, I would use that time and energy to just continue pushing and creating and going to as many cons. What I would do is I'll probably start to branch out of cons a little bit more to be able to go to cons in different states. Go to California cons, go and work my way all the way across. If money was not,
network a
I
bit
think
more.
that'd be one of the things that I would really want to do. And I think that'd be awesome.
JD?
I think mine to break that. Well, the thing I would honestly really do if I had a boatload of cash would be to complete the story that I'm working on, the Oswald Chronicles, because I'm about 1,000 pages in, and I'm probably another 1,500 pages to go. So it's huge, and and I want to get it all in color, and I want to get them printed in like 9x12 hardcover massive volumes. And that would be my obvious goal. But on top of that, like just a more human goal, I would probably like to have enough money just to tour the entire world for an entire year. And I don't mean cons. I mean literally just go on vacation, tour Europe, tour Asia, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, so now that we got the fun out of the way, let's talk about the other side of it, the perceived success, the perceive I've made it, the fake it till you make it, if you would. How dangerous is it? And we're going to have a panel about that actually this week, the difference between faking it and earning it. So we're actually going to be touching this on a lot. But do you guys think that there's a danger in those people who are out there lying about their success, trying to bolster their success? I mean, we see it with Kickstarter where someone makes $4,000 and they want to take laps around the pool and act like they're the biggest thing that's ever happened to comics. And those of us in the industry look at it like, 4,000 is not a lot. Where are you investing it? Where is all that going? So I'm going to ask you guys, like, do you think some people kind of try to act like they've conquered Everest with not even being at the foothill yet? And I'll leave that open if anyone wants to jump in first for that one.
Yeah, I'll jump in. That fake it till you make it mentality. I completely understand that. You want to give off the aura of success, even if you haven't quite reached the level of success, whatever that means to you, that you want to get to. But I think the more you treat yourself like the small fish in the big pond, the more you're going to be treated like the small fish in the big pond. So giving yourself that self-confidence and to be able to have, do what you're doing and know that you really like what you're doing, and hoping other people like what you're doing and being as positive as you possibly can about it until you do, I think is a perfect way to go. Now, I mean, if it was me personally, they say you have to make money so you have to spend money to make money. And that's 100% true, I believe. But it's also knowing that what you're doing, the content that you're creating is strong. And I think if you have that content in one book, in multiple books, and creating with other creators, creating just by yourself, then I think the audience will eventually come, and the success, whatever that means to you, will eventually come. So really, whatever you're comfortable in doing, and how comfortable you are with doing it is really up to the individual. And whatever success means to you is how you try to get there.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that I've seen over the years is that a lot of people come into this and they honestly don't know what they're getting into. They're like, oh, I'm going to do a comic book. I'm going to print 5,000 copies of my first issue. I'm going to take it to my first show. And you'll go to a show and you see these guys with like cases and cases and cases of books behind them, and they're having a hard time struggling. They're struggling to sell them all. They'd be lucky if they sell half a case, no less, no less a whole case. They have 50 of them behind them. So I think what it is I think a lot of people have this misconception that, if I just print it, people are just going to buy it. That's not how it works. That you have to go out there, you have to hustle, you have to put in that work. But also, I think even before that, you have to go out and seek out some people who've already done this and talk to them, and try to find out, hey, what's going on? How do I do this correctly? And I mean, you might mentor somebody that like, you yourself are only selling X, and they're like, and they shoot off to the moon, and it's like, fantastic, but they should at least seek that out before jumping in wholeheartedly. Because I see a lot of people just dumping a lot of money and they don't know what they're doing, and it drives me nuts. I've seen people just they put on a good face and they present themselves professionally, which is the way we all should. But when you go out there and they're hiring artists and they're spending, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, $20,000 just to put out a book, you're just like, you're crazy, because you're gonna have a real rough time making that back. So that's one of the things that I've seen.
I think it's interesting because I absolutely agree with both you guys. One of the hardest things I think nowadays is like comparative success, and the perceived success. It used to be like your work spoke for yourself. Hey, if it sold this many copies, or you saw it everywhere on every newsstand, or if it was on T-shirts, that was one of those things. But we live in a wildly expanded world, between just being able to do stuff like this, where we can do a radio cast, a stream cast on multiple platforms, and reach thousands or hundreds of people, whatever it may be, depending on the day. And at the same time, we cry out for free speech and free perception. So suddenly we have to make ourselves look better. People make the jokes about like the travel bloggers who just have the green screen and they take the photos. And occasionally that's been a situation. Creators will, they'll buy, the phrase is they buy likes or they buy follows. And, yes, you can always hack that system. And that allows you to become a guest at a show. And repetition of becoming a guest that perceives, an entire image of you being far more successful than you are. And then you realize, hey, that person can't pay their bills, or they aren't able to, they can't get any work where they're getting paid. They only do it for comp, where they get comp copies, or they get the ability to sell posters of the work that they did. In short, the world keeps evolving, and that perception is always going to be radically shifted. But we have to choose, I guess, what the morality of our perception is. And it's like, look, some weekends I have a great weekends. If I'm at a show or if I've been working on a project, I'll do really well on it. And then there are others where I'm not. That's just one of those things, changing wise. So for me, it's trying to find the people who, overextend and over brag themselves and be like, yes, I am the grandest thing, the emperor's new clothes, versus the people who are actually out there busting their butts. You don't see them out there promoting and plugging as much. They're like, hey, where are you? Oh, he's working. Like literally, he's working every time. Gets up and works, and then he comes down here because he has to come down here. But sorry, random side tangent.
No, it's a very valid point. I have to completely agree. I don't think anyone in this room, it's a rarity, has less than a decade of experience underneath their belt. I think we've all got about 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And in that 10-year time, you can think of just a long list of people who you've seen come in so hard, so fast, we're going to be a legend. And I always tell people, don't come in and tell me you're going to be a legend. It's going to make me not want to listen. It's because I don't think you understand what you have ahead of you. Will Eisner didn't think he was going to be a legend. He just wanted to work. He was hungry to work. He had survived the Spanish flu, actually, and the Great Depression. He'd survived those things. Stan Lee didn't use his own damn name because he was afraid that he would never be able to use it when he was a serious novel writer, which he never wrote. So I want you to understand the people who became legends didn't sit around talking about how good they are. And I say this all the time. You can always tell which creators you'll see back at a show in 2 or 3 years. The creators who are always talking to someone, always hanging out, always talking to the customers, no matter how slow the show is, they are talking to fans. They're going to stay in the industry. And then you see the younger artists who did something on Deadpool or Daredevil or an Image comic like Spawn, and they're on their phone, texting or they're in the back corner talking to someone they brought in, hanging out. And it's hard. It's heartbreaking, but they're not going to last as long until they change their attitude. So how much does attitude matter for success? Because that is I believe to be the ultimate key. And of course, for those who don't know, and we'll bring it up again, we introduced PAIR this week, which is be professional, be ethical, be authentic, be respectful. And it's sad that I had to literally take it down to Sesame Street to help creators understand how they should be acting. But it was so important because I have new creators all the time asking me what I should do. And when I go to their page, they're like, oh, my comic's going to be the best in the world. Dude, make a comic. Like, before you even tell us it's going to be the best in the world, make a comic. The reason we say that, it's not to diss them. It's they don't understand the process. They don't understand that the first thing they put out will never be the best thing. And if it is the best thing, they're in the wrong industry. You know, they're like Milli Vanilli, a one-hit wonder, and possibly someone's writing it for them. So what do you guys think about that?
I 100% agree. I think that a lot of times people get in with the idea that I'm gonna create the next Superman, the next Batman, the next Deadpool, and then I'm gonna get into TV, I'm gonna get into movies, I'm gonna get into all that stuff, and really it has to start with the love of creating. Even if it doesn't become the most popular characters in the history of comic books, that love of creating, that love of telling a story, that love of building a world, that love of getting that one, if it's just one simple concept out in your book, it always has to start from there. Starting from, I'm going to get into comics so I can have a mansion and a limo and a pool in the backyard and whatever it is, and be big man on campus and the next Stan Lee. Really setting yourself up for failure. Because there's a lot of creators out there, and there's a lot of people who do some awesome work. But there's also people out there that are just kind of mulling through to see if they can make something happen for them. It shows. It always shows. You can see that passion in any creation and any creator. And Rob was talking about going to conventions and talking to people. Yeah, I've had the same experience. Whenever I'm at conventions, I want to sell books. I want to be able to, at very least, break even with my table. But my first goal is always to look people in the eye, shake their hand, and get to know them and have them get to know me a little bit. And if they create, or if they just love comic books, or they just happened up to the table, to be able to connect with them as human beings first, and hope that they become fans of what I'm doing. But really, that communication is the key to success. And the more you communicate with people, the more successful you are.
Yeah, I think this business, I mean, whether we look at it as a business, a hobby, or whatever it is, this is a nose to the grindstone type of thing we're doing. You have to be consistent. You have to put in your time. I tell everyone, try to get in at least, for me, this is a very expensive hobby. I do this, hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day, every day, though. And by doing that, I have very good results because I'm consistent. But you got to do it every day. So, I mean, that's the one thing I tell everyone, just keep at it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. Because the more you talk, the less you're going to do. Because you're going to psych yourself out that you've done something when you really haven't.
Yep. I have the concept of ego and hubris stuck in my head right now, as far as trying to balance those two things in order to be actually successful in a professional manner. There are always going to be creators who are like, hey, you can do you do this cover for me, and hey, it gets your name out there because of who I am, and then of course you get your comp copies or whatever have you. But then 5 or 6 years later, suddenly that person may be like just having a bad day or whatever goes on. And then they suddenly be like, how dare you? You're taking money out of my wallet and bread out of my parents or my family's, mouths, blah, 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 blah. Again, focusing on the concept of ego and hubris, where it's like having the right level on how to get this done. You guys are absolutely right. Working and making sure this gets done is a thing. Yesterday, I wasn't feeling great, but I still got up and I worked and I did what I had to do for the rest of the day. And then I went and did further research and market research and things like that because I still wasn't feeling well, but I had to work in some level. I still had to put in the time and put in the effort. And it's funny because, when we're saying like, hey, it's a decade of work minimum, that's on par. Like if you're under 10 years and you're already wildly successful, congratulations. But this industry in itself is not going to be something that, is going to give you the ultimate success level all the time. It's a 1 in thousands, especially nowadays because we live in such a well-connected world. But yeah, that's just kind of my random 2 cents on that.
All right, so let me ask you guys.
Kind of disappeared on, so there it is.
Oh, sorry. Let me ask you guys a blunt question. Are you guys interested in fame? Are you interested in money? For me, I can honestly say, while it would be great, while I would enjoy being a little famous for what I do, and I would love to have a lot of money, honestly, my goal is to have people read the books. And that's a very personal thing because of how I got into comics. But for you guys, let me know. What do you guys think? You're not buying an app. Let me deal with this. You guys go around the room. Josh, you want to start it?
Oh, I guess
I
was
know
just
for
indicating
myself.
to you guys.
You understand? Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
But like I was saying though, money's fantastic, but only in the sense that it allows it's like fuel for me. You know, it's that fuel to keep the project running. You know, so that's why money is fantastic in that regard. But as far as fame goes, that's nice. But ultimately, I agree with Rob. I just want to get people to read the books.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just getting the word out there. Like I've talked about multiple times on venues like this, that a creator is never done creating, is never done pushing themselves, done growing and learning and changing. And for me, it's not about the bottom line. It's about getting those ideas out there, the ideas and the stories that I want to tell. And I don't really have much to complain about in my life as far as any aspect of it. So money isn't really ever the bottom line for me. It's creating, it's getting those books out and getting those ideas out and being able to fulfill myself as a creator, as a writer, as an artist, and feel that I'm always moving forward, always growing and changing and getting better as I go.
I think about 5 years ago, I came to the realization of what I wanted to do as far as for my career. And pure and simple, I wanted to get to a point where, pure and simple, I didn't have to stress about paying any bills, but at the same time, I could go out and I could draw, and I wouldn't have to draw something that I didn't want to draw. As an artist, it doesn't matter what gig you're working. It doesn't matter if you're sitting there having to do caricatures or sidewalk art or doing oil paintings, or somebody goes, hey, I really want you to redo that can of tomato soup, or hey, I need somebody to draw the 3000th incarnation of this homage cover of Spider-Man by McFarlane, but do it with my character and make sure the hand is twisted the wrong way. Doesn't matter what you do. You're always going to have at least one or two projects that you don't want to work on, be it weekly, be it monthly, whatever. And you have to, because you have to be professional and you have to make sure it works. But the reason why I say when I realized about 5 years ago is that I wanted to build my audience before I started producing my own works. And the goal is pure and simple, is I'll build my audience and then there's my work. And if my audience, after those many years of getting to see me or talk to me or listen to me or see me draw, suddenly decides that they don't like my work, then I can do other things. But at that point, I have reached my goal. Build the audience up to that point and then go, here it is, instead of starting off cold and just going, here's something that none of you know about that I've been working on. And there's countless examples of people that have done this. You can take in from simple ones from Kabuki with David Mack. You can take in, Billy Tucci and things like that, where they're like, hey, I'm trying to work on this. Here's just an ash can. Here's what I'm working on. And you know what? It's not it wasn't a top 10. It's not a Vampirella type thing, but there are people who know that character, and there are going to be people who support that character. We've had the Asterix Vikings. The guy died, earlier this year, prior to all of this craziness. And there are going to be people who constantly know those two little Vikings, around the world. And I guess when you oversimplify it, doesn't matter. As a creator, you're always looking just to have your story told or your art shown or remembered by just one person, be it even for one generation or be it for three. And I think that's all that we can really hope for. I apologize. I'm very existential today.
Oh, this is the perfect time for it. You're doing just fine. I think this is one of those conversations we want to open it up. And we're going to kind of switch into jealousy. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to talk about one last topic in success, and that is the perceived success that is public. Everything we do is up to us to report to the public. Whether we're actually reporting it, telling the truth about it. I have gone to shows And I've had friends come up to me and go, "Oh man, this is how you doing today?" And before I answer, I go, "Well, how are you doing?" Like I always turn it back on them first, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm doing great. This is a great show. This is absolutely great." And I'm like, "Really?" Because it sucks for me. Like I'm getting beat up right now. Like they don't like me. I think they're drawing pictures of me in the bathroom. It's so bad. And they're like, "Oh, you too? This is a horrible show." And I'm like, "Didn't you just say this was a great show?" We are taught in this industry to lie about our experiences, it seems. Shh, don't talk about it. Shh, don't talk about it. Don't talk about how you're doing bad. Me, I'm out there like on the side with a cup after a bad show doing a live video. Like, this is how I'm getting my gas money to get home, guys. This was a bad show. Please donate a few coins. I got to get home. I don't hold back. Do you think that A, we're taught in this industry to lie, and then B, do you think Kickstarter is making some people's heads blow up that don't deserve it, not realizing what we all see? Like when you make even $10,000, but you had 10 covers, we all know where the money is going. You're not making as much as you say you're making. We can see the difference, or worse, the people who raise money and then give you a black and white book that's 17 pages. You're like, what did you just give me? Like you have this awesome cover, and then I opened it. It's like the wrong book got put in. So I'm going to open that up to you guys. Josh, you want to start this, or you want to go with David first?
I mean, I don't mind. I think, yes, there is a level of perceived success that, you have to actually exhibit. Let me put it this way. If I, apply for a job interview and I am destitute and I have no money, I can barely afford my laundry, and for some reason, the one pair of dress pants I have is out, or it doesn't fit suddenly, and I throw on jeans and then I throw on a collared shirt and I tuck the collared shirt into the jeans and my tie is all wrinkled. I'm more than likely not going to get the job against the guy who came in wearing a suit or wearing a full formal outfit for business attire for that job. And unfortunately, this actually applies to comic books. There's reasons why we make jokes about smell, con funk, or things, or people who just sit there and stare at their cell phones. Representation of who you are is part of your marketing and part of your salesmanship. If I went online and talked about here's how much student loan debt I'm in every single week, or talked about all of the bad things that are happening in the world or anything like this, all unfortunately it does is it takes away from the joy and the pleasure and the other side of the brain that encourages people to be interested in your work, be it through imagination and actual fulfillment, or just from a pure financial, they want to buy it. And sometimes you have to show up and you put on the Pagliacci mask and pretend that things are going like that. But as far as covers are concerned, because I know this will probably get talked on later tonight or later this week as well, but I really want to emphasize this, guys. A lot of creators are not getting paid right now as far as for working for their covers. They're trying to work in collaboration. I have mixed opinions about that, but I can't stress this enough. When you have multiple creators that are working for a Kickstarter that makes 20 or 30 or 40 grand, and all that money does is give them 200 copies of the book, and then they're trying to plug those books in maybe like $200 versus their $1,600 or their $1,000 rate. There are people that are working in tandem where like, here's a photo shoot, and then here's a piece of art by my husband, and then here's this from this other guy who lives down the road from us. And we'll also go ahead and throw in like a CGI modification. We'll do it all for like a set price. And this has been going on prior to all of the events being canceled and stuff like this. But this is the evolution of the industry where this gets you their names. There are people who are like the top variant B, variant C artists who are literally not getting paid. Like they get maybe $50, if anything, just so it shows up on record. But then they get an option to sell a variant all themselves. So they have to make their money off of selling that book. Again, seems like repetition, but it's slightly change in the program. So in short, perception is key. So if you just have to find that right level of hubris of what you want to make your success. You don't want to be like, hey, I slew 10,000 gods, or hey, I killed 7 giants with one blow, put it on the sandwich. But some fairy tale references for some people. Some may get that, some won't. In short, sometimes you have to let that extend to the right level. You be like, hey, I'm successful enough to do what I do. Yeah. David, JD.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, in our business, we are our own worst critic, but we also should be our own best advocate. If we don't say positive things about what we're doing and relay that positivity about what we're doing to people who we want to be our customers, we want to be our fans and our fan base, then they're not gonna bother with us. So I think that as far as Kickstarters and all that kind of stuff, if you aren't making what you want to make or aren't or getting the funds that you want to get, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying we're almost there, we're getting there. Thank you so much for all your support. But then saying we made $1 bazillion out of it, I'm never gonna have to make a comic book again or never gonna have to work again. That definitely would be a problem. But really, for me, in the end, it's about how you portray yourself. So if you are only talking about the money that you're making, or in some cases, I guess, not making, then that's going to turn people off. So for me, it should always be about the success that you feel with creating that book. So as far as walking around with your peacock strut and your chest out, that's okay if you feel good about what you're doing. But also make sure you're being positive towards other people and towards other creators and towards their books, so that you are feeling that positivity and giving that positivity out also. If you're walking around with your chest out strutting and saying, I'm better than that book, I'm better than that book, I'm better than that creator, I'm better than this creator, then we're spinning our wheels. Like I said, we should all be advocates for each other, even if a book that you are showing off or supporting by buying it at a con isn't a book that you would maybe normally pick up in a comic book shop, because that creator created something. You're like, oh, this isn't a normal book that I would normally buy, but you're an indie creator, I'm an indie creator, let's support each other, let's get this going. I think that positivity shines through in our industry, especially as we are as indie creators starting to rise a little bit to the top because of all of the put your pencils down stuff.
JD?
Oh, as far as like perception goes, there's always been a problem I've had personally. I've always had a problem talking about my own work. Like, if you ever, I've been on Rob's channel before, and like you asked me to talk about the Oswald Chronicles, and I'm like, it's about, and I start to lose my mind because I have a problem about feeling braggadocious. Like, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, it's the best thing on the planet, and blah 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 blah, and it's, and I mean, look, I feel it's good. I've been told by plenty of people it's good. You understand? But I have a problem expressing that. So that's why actually I'm on this show to help me express those things, and why I've been doing interviews with people and why I've been trying to overcome this. But there are a large group of people within the community that they brag and brag and brag. And then you get their stuff and you read it and you're like, yeah, I'm just a tad disappointed, So to put it mildly. And to Josh's point, I find it interesting, the thing he was saying about covers and people not getting paid, because I pay my artists, except for my wife. I pay her in different ways, but hey, but
a little bit more.
I'm talking about the bills, damn it. I'm talking about the bills.
Oh, okay.
Right, but
Sure.
but I find it interesting that that artists are working on the back end, especially on people's Kickstarters. Like, why would they even accept something like that?
Well, a lot of them are pulling the same thing as back in the heyday, where it was like, hey, you work after the work is done, then you get paid. It's old tactics. It's the old stories. It's just a new cover, metaphorically speaking. It's actually perfect for this, but it's just. The whole no new ideas under the sun. There's just a new speaker, but it's the screwy thing is that from their standpoint, they're all working together to increase their exposure, and they're doing their. Somebody recently started using this collective effort, bringing everyone in together and being able to work together and collaborate and yada yada yada, spiel, working for free. But it works, and sometimes it works for the better, and sometimes it works for the worse.
But I mean, like I've seen some of these Kickstarters where some of them, like let's say the anthologies, right? Where that's that sort of thing. Everybody chips in a story or whatever and whatever, because I don't get involved in these things. I just do my stuff, and I don't pay attention to what these people are doing. But I mean, some of them raise $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Why can't? And I know printing. I know all. I've done all this stuff. You understand? Mm-hmm. So I know if you got 70 grand and you have to put out, I don't know, 1,000 books, you're going to end up with about $40,000 left over at the end if you do it correctly, if you do it smart, okay? Even if you just end up with 20, why can't you just break that down on a page rate per person? You say you got a 100-page book, let's say you end up with 20 grand, you end up like $200 a page. That's what it breaks down to roughly. You understand? Maybe the person who created it gets 20% of that. Okay, fine. Everybody walks away with something. But what is this garbage about people not getting paid? I mean, I'd lose my mind.
Well, that's what's so screwed.
Through that, where you're like, oh, it's only 9, pages, or somebody comes in and says that back end deal, which is always a huge red flag being waved in the air. Like you're 99.9% chance you'll never see a dime. So in the end, as a beginning creator, doing those back end deals, you have to ask yourself: is it worth creating a book and getting that knowledge and that experience? Even though I might not get the $100 from it, you have to ask yourself that question. I think everybody's different on some level. We've all drawn a book or created a book or something for a little less money than what we thought we were going to get from it, or maybe even for no money, for just the experience. But I think that it's the level of the amount of people out there creating those back-end deals, and then the book will never see the light of day. Which is an experience that most creators, a lot of creators have had, and that really just hurts us as indie creators as a whole, because you don't know who you can trust, and that's one of the reasons why before I get into bed with another creator, not actually Diddy, but getting to bed with another creator that I really know them, that I know they're putting out books on their own, that they have shown a level of care about what they're creating and how they're creating it on their own. And then I say, hey, let's create something together. And they say, great, let's do it. Or they say, oh, no, I'm okay. Or whatever their answer is. So it's that level of trust, I think, especially that a lot of beginning creators kind of lose because of those back-end deals, or those I'll pay you after it's done. Or say I'll pay you, I'll give you half now and then don't give you the other half at the end. So it definitely hurts the creative process.
And occasionally you can have like the contracts and things as well, where they'd be like, oh, well, if we hit this many, or if we sell this many copies of your book, then I'll pay you your standard rate. Yeah. And there's always 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon as far as the independent comics are concerned. But like I've mentioned this a couple of times on this podcast, but like there's a couple of major projects that I've worked on that I won't work with those companies ever again. I won't work with Topps again because I did 200 pieces of art. And I never got paid, and it was going to be crap pay to begin with, and wow. I did 2 sets, and they were like, here's your 90 days, submit your tax paperwork, yada, yada. I did. It's a licensed brand. It's a licensed distributor. They put it in packages. I can find them on eBay. No problem. They're not the best of my art, but it's one of those things where it's like, I never got paid. And same as this, where it's like, if I work with a creator and they said they're going to pay me and then they don't pay me, or they don't give me the amount of comps they said they were going to give me, I don't work with them again. Or if I do, suddenly the rate goes up on the deposit to cover what they owe me. Depends on how broke I am.
It's really sad that, again, going back to the whole reason of creating the pair thing, we literally have to talk about these things because there are bad operators. There are people who think that it's okay to do this stuff. Everyone's worried about their own money. I mean, there was a creator that was losing their mind because how dare a comp artist expect more than 3 comp issues? And granted, that should have been negotiated before anything went on. But again, you don't lose your shit over someone you worked with. You find a way to work with them. Especially, this creator would not have raised as much money on Kickstarter if that other creator who did the cover hadn't promoted them, used their energy, used their name to get them where they had been. And that's just disrespecting and not understanding. We trade success a lot in this industry. We really do. We work with people who help us level up, and we help other people level up. And when you get someone who suddenly is like, whoa, they're the people who don't belong. They're the people who suddenly, oh, I can't afford it. There were shipping expenses. Or worse, they don't actually do the entire Kickstarter. So what we're going to do, they don't fulfill it. That's worse. We have shows about that. But before we get full-blown into jealousy, where I want to talk about that, I want to invest at least a half an hour into that. I do want to show that none of us are jealous personally. And by the way we're going to show that is we're going to promote someone else's book. So I'm going to go with, at Walmart now, you can get Fast Reads. I've read this. It's actually rather good. It's about a real human being. I really enjoyed it. And not only can you get this book, but 4 other books now all at Walmart. And this will help the comic book industry. Show that you're not jealous of other people. Show that this industry matters to you by at least buying one of these books. And I warn you, you have to try to look in weird places at Walmart to find it. I found this with kids' books on a top shelf. And don't bother asking employees at Walmart. I mean, on a normal day. No offense, Walmart. But I might as well not ask. I might as well just not try.
That's why they have walkie-talkies.
I'm not trying to pick on Walmart. I'm on a break with trying to be positive because we're in a pandemic. So
I just keep adding things to the list. Cosplayers, Walmart, Soup Plantation.
I was offered a job at Walmart, and I literally looked at them like, I can't work with you people because of how unorganized you are just right now during the hiring process. Like, I have gotten 3 different offers for 3 different paychecks right now. And of course, I'll take the highest one if I'm going to take this job. But the fact that none of you know what you're talking about scares me. I can't work with you. And I literally walked out on the interview because I was like, I'm not doing this. Walmart, I appreciate you being there for us during this pandemic. Get your shit together, honey. Get your shit together. Put the comics where they belong. Josh, who are you promoting today?
I think we'll go with Mirka Adolfo's Unnatural. So it's one of those weird things where at first you look at this book and you're like, oh my God, it's a furry comic book. But the plot in itself is actually pretty straightforward, but it leads enough. It plays with a very Asian theme in the sense of like you get to know more about the characters as the plot progresses. But for me, I end up picking up trades these days for one, because I'm always on the road, but I don't always get the opportunity to pick up single issues and I don't want to damage them. But this is one of the few books that just like, as you go through the book, I'm going to try and find a really good side example without offending anybody. The color work on this book is it constantly is just beautiful. I mean, that's just like a page-to-page difference to just go from those blues and green color palettes to slightly more summery tones, and you jump back and forth, and it's really stunning to look at. Like, it's just visually, and yes, they've got their covers and their random variants done by other artists, but like just as a book in itself, visually, it's just great. And I think they're already in volume 3 at this point, and he's already started on his new project. But it's a really good book, and I got others, but that's probably one of the more recent ones that I've been staying on.
And that art is beautiful. I love that color. The color composites and how they change really shows color. A colorist that knows how to really speak to the work and make it so much better. David, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I have a great book by Mima Comics, and it is by Michael J. Myers, and it's called Fallstone. And it's very much a supernatural thriller. He's got a great start to the story. He starts off pretty heads up with knowing you're gonna get some monsters in there, knowing you're gonna get some scary stuff going on in there. It's just violent enough, but not too violent. Just characters are just on the edge of like those tropes that we hear, but then they'll do something that kind of gives you a chance to go, oh, okay, so they're kind of putting stuff on their heads a little bit. And he's a great creator. You can find Mike on Facebook. I want to make sure I get his Facebook page in here too. On Facebook at MJ Myers, MYERS. He's on Twitter also too, but you can find all those links on Facebook too. He's got a couple issues out. And he's doing a real good job. He's a creator in upstate New York, also just like me, and he's got some stuff coming out. So check him out.
All right, JD.
Cool. I'm popping Crescent City Magic by Michael L. Peters. Now, Michael I met on Facebook, and I've just been looking at his work for a long time. He does a beautiful, and I was just like, you know what? I got to get that book. It's on Amazon. It's an urban fantasy, a lot of magic, really cool book. He's working on the second volume. Really looking forward to that. This is a great book, Crescent City Magic by Michael L. Peters.
And we're going to get into jealousy now. One of the ugliest things about this industry is jealousy, and we see people trying to tear other people down because of it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. First, I want to start with, have you ever felt jealous? And I can tell you that there are moments I do feel a little jealous of people, but it's not for the reasons that most people think. It's never about money. Whenever I saw someone get a project they love on Kickstarter, I was always a little jealous of that because I felt like I put so much passion in, I was just being overlooked. There was a creator that I kind of had a bad feeling for too, and he's a very popular person who's been accused of some horrific things. And I was someone who, like everyone else, was told he was a good person, but I always got a bad read on him. But I always felt that it was because I was jealous. Because jealousy can blind us sometimes. Sometimes we're like, well, I want to be where they are. Look at how respected he is. Look at the money he can make. I feel like maybe I'm being jealous. So there's a hard line between understanding if you're really jealous or just disliking something or disliking a person. I think that's even just hard to identify in ourselves. Because I know with the project we love, I love all the things I create. And it did feel a little bit like a swipe. And I'll be honest with you, when we got it with Cat Dad and Supermom, I was blown away. I almost cried. I'm not a crier. That almost made me cry because it felt like I was validated. And sometimes that's really what we're just seeking. And I think jealousy isn't about always money. It's just about someone noticing how hard we're working. Because so rarely does anyone stop and go, Josh, I see you. I see you doing all those videos. You're doing an awesome job. Keep going. And when we hear that, it's like, it's like nitrous that can fuel us for months. And we don't get it a lot in this creative industry, especially not being on the road. Because usually you'll get it from the fans. The fans on the other side of the table, they come up and every time they go, wow. Even when they're like, I would buy this if I had enough money, we turn off in our head the fact that they haven't bought it and we count it that we've actually sold it to them. And they just don't have money because we're energized by that. So if you guys could just take a minute and maybe talk about personal jealousy and how you've dealt with it in the industry, I'd appreciate that. We'll go this time with David, and I didn't mean to do that when you're taking a drink. But we'll start with David this time.
Yeah, I think every artist, no matter what you create, has seen somebody else who creates something in the same medium that you do and go, oh man, I wish that I had thought of that. I wish that I had done it that way. I wish that I could use this idea or that idea. But like you said, I don't know if jealousy is the right word. I think it comes from, for me anyway, it comes from the idea that I want to be the best that I could possibly be. And when I see somebody doing something or seeing something from a different angle than I'm seeing, it kind of gnaws at your craw a little bit to like, oh man, I wish that I could turn it around and see it from that angle a little bit. So jealousy, no, but it always gives me a chance to be able to see things from another perspective. So if I see somebody creating a thriller book or a superhero story or a sci-fi story, and they come up with an idea that is different, maybe it's a similar idea that's something that a million people have had, but they turned it on their heads a little bit. It always makes me stop and thinking of how I'm creating and how I'm telling my stories and how I can take that one idea and twist it a little bit. So for every time that I've said, oh man, I wish that I thought of that, or I wish that I could get that angle perfectly like they've done it, I always try to spin it as a positive to say, all right, now I'm going to take what I'm doing and I'm going to try to think every single time, is there a better way to tell this? Is there a better way to make this shot? Is there a better way, a better angle to be able to tell this story? And always come out of it with a positive mindset of, this is helping me grow and helping me be better, whether it's a professional that's been working for 50 years in the industry or somebody that I've just happened stands across their table at con. it's always a growing and learning experience. So that's a little twinge of, oh man. Well, for me, I try to always make it grow into, all right, I'm gonna use that feeling to be able to grow and be able to change and be able to continue to see things from a different angle.
Judy.
Josh, you want to do it or you want me?
Oh, I am about to miss all sorts of failings. So go ahead.
All right. I mean, as far as myself and as far as jealousy goes concerned, I don't really find myself being jealous. I can sometimes be envious of someone who's generated a lot of capital. And like I said, my thing is always capital is fuel. You know, it's just fuel to continue the project. Looked at it like this. I mean, one man's success or another person's success does not mean I failed. You understand? That's always been my view on it. So just because someone succeeds doesn't mean I failed. You understand? Dozens and dozens and hundreds of people succeed. You understand? That's just fuel for me to say, you know what, I can do it too. You understand? What one man has done, another man can do. So if that person has done it, I can do it. I just have to find my way to do it. It may not be the same way they did it, but I can push forward and find my own way. And that's pretty much how I look at it. Because like I said, jealousy, I mean, it's an ugly thing. And I'm like, I don't, like I said, I can be envious, but it's mostly about, just because I just want more money because I eventually want to get that Arthur Adams cover. That's it.
All right, Josh.
All right. Well, it's funny because JD was touching on the envious thing, and sometimes our words are definitely, we nitpick it for sure. I was definitely gonna say I've had moments where I have been envious from the financial aspect. I have something that somebody else has, but they choose to get theirs, and sometimes it comes down to is just they saw theirs first. But for me, my form of jealousy, I guess, if anything, is it's a little bit well, frankly speaking, it's a little bit more petty. I prefer to have an adversary. I like having even if they don't know it and I'm the only person that just like I just don't like that person. Be it something that they rub me the wrong way, or I don't like their art and how they're on the same level, or how they constantly seem to show up, or maybe they just rub me the wrong way being next to me at an event, or they said something online and then refused to continue the conversation after being debated. It may be something very trivial, but for me, it fuels and it helps create kind of like a deadline. Like when you're sitting there, hey, I got to get this done by this point. So I think my jealousy issue, as far as production or anything comes down to that, it's not so much, hey, this person got this project or this comes that. I've known enough that goes on in this industry. Sometimes it's just who you know, and sometimes it's just you submitted to a contest, and it's like, congratulations, somebody else submitted. You're the only one. You win. Woo! And there's no reason for it. But sometimes it just comes down to is just focus on your own work and get it done. I have grown quite a bit. I still occasionally will go down the rabbit hole in my head and overthink it. Or I'll start being like, man, look at this guy. Why the heck is he even this thing? Like, he's not doing this, and this is this, and this is this. But I have to remind myself to let it go because it's just a waste of energy. It frankly is. When it really comes down to it, being jealous of anybody or trying to toot your own horn and throw out your cod piece because of your syphilis, to make it bigger than everybody else's. There's no reason, it's going to be just make more people notice that particular area and how you're overly focusing on that area and the other things in your life. And it creates more of a spotlight than it does. It becomes a hindrance in the long run. So, I mean, that's just, in short, don't waste time on it. Just try and move forward. You guys touched it perfectly. And like, hey, sometimes it's professional, enviousness or enmity or whatever have you. But it's what drives you and what continues to drive you. If we focus on the positives of creation, that's fantastic. But we're human, and I think it's healthy to admit those things. What drives us. And for me, for a long time, it was definitely having an adversary. Some sort of get past this point. But after I hit like 3 of those, I was like, okay, we're done. It's like, new goal. Nope, never mind. We're not going after that goal.
All right. Let's get into it. Let's talk about jealousy. I have dealt with my fair share, as I'm sure everyone else has. So, can you just talk about someone who is jealous of you, how you handled it in a positive way? Please don't talk about the negative ones. We want to kind of try to influence people to handle it maturely. So, I'll start off. Someone had gotten jealous because I had lettered a book, and they had done the job before me, and someone had made a comment that I had done a better job on social media, and it kind of rubbed them the wrong way, and I never meant to step on anyone's toes. Someone had tagged me as the letterer instead of the letterer for the entire project, as opposed to just one short story. I found it was best understanding that I could understand why he was jealous of me getting some notoriety for a project he had done already, and it was already out and had been successful. And I think sometimes it was, other people word things the wrong way. They don't mean it. Like when we talk about our friends and they join a new project, sometimes we'll be like, oh, the project just got upgraded. And we don't realize we just dissed the other artists. We didn't mean to. We didn't mean to step on anyone's toes. We're just so excited that our friend is going to be part of it. And we think our friend is this huge, great person. And we're cheerleading while stepping on someone else's throat. And I understand how that could come off the wrong way. So the way I handled it, I reached out to them personally and I said, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to make sure you're credited. I'm going to make sure that they change the wording, and you're going to be the person who's the project. And I just did that. I can't handle if someone says that I did something better, but I want you to know if they're saying I did it better, I took everything you did and I tried to match it exactly as you did. And maybe I was just in a place where it got noticed by the person and they don't even see what you did. Because basically what I did was just copy you. And that really went a long way. And I stayed humble and honest, and I didn't try to take accolades that I didn't think I deserved, because I was coming into the middle of a project for a brief moment, and I was going to be back out of it. It was his project. And I even went on to publicly do a video that said, hey, listen, there was a miscommunication, a flub. To be clear, I only worked on these 4 pages, and that is all I'm ever going to work on. I am not planning to be a letterer for that project. So this time, JD, I don't think we've started with you yet. If we have, then either way, you're starting. So you're up.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know. For myself, I don't remember coming across a great deal of it. I think the only time I really did was when I was working professionally, and I wrote a 6-issue limited series of Tenchi Muyo, based off of the anime years ago. A lot of people come out and they have criticism. Oh, it isn't exactly right, and this, that, and the other thing. Exactly, and it's that sort of thing. And I was just like, I just came out and I said, listen, guys, I'm so sorry. It didn't come up the way it says, but thank you for your criticism. And, I'll try to learn from this, and then on the next project, I'll do better. And that's basically how I dealt with it. I'm not going to sit there and yell and scream at people. It doesn't make any sense.
Ain't that the truth? We'll go ahead and go with Josh. Josh, what do you got for us?
I mean, to be honest, I think the closest thing that comes to jealousy is that a couple of years ago, I got asked to do some teaching of art classes at a series of shows. And I started getting a bunch of artists asking me why I was suddenly a guest while other people were. And it was one of those things where it's like, look, here's the thing. I didn't ask to teach this class. Somebody who was rehired onto the staff, who knew my work and had seen me for 2 or 3 years, and we had kind of bonded, and I would never try to hard sell them or anything else. They came up to me and said, hey, we want to start doing this, and I think that your style would work for this. And like I said, I'm a middle ground guy. I don't have a specific style. I adapt to what the project is. And I was incredibly flattered, and we worked out a plan, and I taught classes. And after the first 2 or 3, we figured out the kinks, but they all sold out. And the closest thing I got was a bunch of people just be like, well, you get your tables for free, or you get this. And I'm like, yeah, but I still got to pay for my travel. It's not like I'm getting a full ride on this thing, and I still got to cover the art supplies. That's one of those things where like their jealousy was misplaced, and I would try to be that guy. But look, you don't realize it. Like they schedule my classes in the middle of prime sales, and I can't do anything about that because that's when they've scheduled the classes. And so I don't know. I guess as far as my response to it, it was just being honest. being candid and going, hey, look at this. I don't really have any stories of people being professionally jealous of me because I'm not remotely big enough or small enough for either of those things. Like I said, middle ground. I stay away and I just watch everybody rant and complain online and go, oh, look, Rome's burning again.
Yeah.
I really wish somebody would take that fiddle away.
A lot of times, jealousy is also based upon someone's inadequacies over themselves. It's not always about perceived success as much as it is if anyone's doing better than them in any way, shape, or form, they try to rip down. And we've watched that recently, really. I think the pandemic really brought out the ugly in people because and I get it, you're feeling tough right now. You're feeling at home and you're not knowing how to make money. So I am taking some of the personal attacks that I've seen, not just on myself, but on other friends, as people reacting to a difficult situation. And some of it I have taken with an absolute grain of salt, understanding these are difficult times. And we are dealing with something we haven't seen in generations. So, David, how about yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm waiting for somebody to be jealous of what I'm doing. But people who have said, "Oh man, I think you're a little ahead of me on that one," or "I think you've got great ideas with this or that." But I always see that as they're saying positive things to me, and even if it is criticisms about something that I'm doing, like Josh said, you take those criticisms and you absorb them and you try to decide whether you want it to be a part of what you're doing or not be a part of what you're doing. And then you move forward. I haven't really had much jealousy, outward jealousy towards what I'm doing. I think I've always tried to keep all of my interactions as positive as I possibly could. Even if somebody says criticisms, I would say, "Oh, that's a good idea," or "That's a good way of thinking about it," or "Thank you so much for your honesty about what it is," or whatever they're talking about. But outright jealousy, I don't know if I've ever come across it. If I have, I was oblivious to it. I wasn't paying attention to that. I was merely trying to just communicate with whoever was in front of me, or try to see what they were all about, and hope that they were listening to what I was saying as much as I was listening to what they were saying.
I think I was reflecting back. I think I've been part of somebody else's jealousy without realizing it one time. Long story short, I was informed that they were going to send like a cease and desist or a lawsuit towards somebody at another show, and they had vendors at another show. And so they were going to go to the show that the artists were actually at versus their representatives and give them the cease and desist. And I told their reps, I was like, hey, so just as a heads up, this is what I've been told. This is what's going down. Turns out it was just like pettiness, but this was one of those tables where people were like, oh, well, they sell theirs so cheap. And, they just get it all colored overseas and they produce it over there. And that's why it's cheap. It's not even on good paper, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, look, it's just different market strategy. But those people, it turned out, they weren't submitting a cease and desist, so it was more of a gossip situation than a jealousy, really. But I think that was the closest thing I came to it, is somebody was tired of being next to that particular table and constantly losing money because of it being next to like that low price end.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in society. I think, if you don't mind, if I can talk about that a little bit, where people get kind of caught up in something going on, and one person gets somebody else all riled up, and then those two people get four more people riled up, and before you know it, you've forgotten what you're even arguing about or what you got riled up to begin with. I think there's a lot of that going on right now, because I think a lot of people are all, stewing in their own juices at their house, or worried about what's going to be happening in the future. So I think we're seeing a little bit of an uptick of that. So my hope is that once all this calms down, everybody else can calm down, and we can we can not be so quick to jump on each other. I hope that everybody says, get back to normal. I'm kind of hoping that it's better than normal. We're a little bit less quick to jump on each other for our differences, or jump on each other for our political views, or whatever it is, and just know that we all have an opinion, and hopefully those opinions are based in fact and not just feelies, and that we can always move forward and try to be as positive with each other as possible.
Yeah, I got caught up in something where two grown men were fighting over me, and neither one of them were even close to quoting what I had said or even understood what I had said. It became a Chinese whisper where someone had interpreted something how they decided to interpret and were trying to gatekeep me. And then somehow I got dragged into their battle between each other. And I remember just sitting there being like, why aren't they quoting me? The whole time I was like, I never said any of what they're saying. So it's getting ridiculous right now. And I think people are just frustrated. So grain of salt, definitely. But I do want to end on this note, and then the positive note will be telling people where you can be found. But first, I want you guys to talk about, in your own personal experience, the ugliest thing you have seen that was part of jealousy. To me, one of the ugliest, and this is for creators to learn not to do this. One of the ugliest things I see is creators behind the scenes counting their little dollars on what they made on Kickstarter and trying to compare projects as if it's the same thing. You know, like a fish merchant going over to ask what the Apple merchant did. And they're all comparing and trying to be competitive. And I'm all good with being competitive. But I've been at shows with people at tables where they're doing horrible. And I'm the type of person who stopped pitching my book and started pitching their book to help them out. Because I don't want anyone to drown. I want us all to rise together. So one of the ugliest things I see is when competition stops being competition that's friendly and starts being as a way for you to feel better about yourself. Look how many backers I had. Look how much money you made. I'm going to say this. If you're not selling 1 million copies, you're not doing anything that's going to impress me. You know, I'm talking you have to make millions. You have to sell hundreds of thousands. I mean, even the Spawn creator made millions of dollars, but he only had 2,000 backers. That's not a lot of people demographically. You know what I mean? Like, that you really think about that. That's such a small number. So I'm never going to be impressed by anyone's numbers except for Cyberfrog. And again, Cyberfrog had a very low backer count comparatively to what it would take to make millions. Impressed by it, absolutely. Glad to see the industry going. But imagine if, like, someone is now going, like, what if he went around and was like, I had that many backers, so I'm king. No, you only had 2,000, 3,000 backers. It's not a lot of people in the world. Come talk to me when you have 100,000 backers, right? When you have 100,000 fans. So if you guys are doing Kickstarters, God bless you. I hope you're successful. But stop acting like it's like a divining rod where it somehow gives you magical powers. It doesn't. You know, especially those of you who are only on Kickstarter and you make $4,000 and never go to a show, you don't understand that the rest of us are actually selling books and making more than what you're making on Kickstarter. So please, for the love of God, stop treating Kickstarter like it's the fucking Sorting Hat out of Harry Potter. It's fucking not. It's a place for you to raise money, raise your fucking money, deliver your books, and shut the fuck up. All right? And make your next book. I don't want to hear how good you did on Kickstarter. I want to hear what you're doing next. Because
Rob's
it's always going to...
not a Hufflepuff.
What's that?
Nothing.
He said Hufflepuff.
Oh, it's
You're
always...
clearly not a Hufflepuff.
No, it's always the last thing that you did that no longer matters. It's the thing you're going to do next. So be a positive person. Take your success. Be proud of yourself. Move on. Stop trying to tell other people how well you did. That's the first thing that goes in this year. And in my mind, it's like, I don't want to be around this person anymore because they're just trying to make other people feel bad. Because they're just trying to talk about how good they are because they're insecure. Just how it comes across to me. Like, I don't ever see Brad Pitt on an interview going, you know how many movies I've been in? I'm so super awesome. Do you know how much money I've made over the years? Let's talk about every movie I've been in and how much money I made. Has never fucking happened. Grow up, people. Josh?
For things I hate? I'm confused. I thought we were just going around
Jealousy.
saying
The worst thing that you've seen someone based on, like, or just like envy. Envy and jealousy will go with both things. Like, someone's doing something on the internet or even just in life at the cons that you're like, wow, why would you be that person? Why are you trying to kneecap another person?
I mean, it's not so much kneecapping. I think most of mine are outside of the actual industry. Like, if somebody's interested in somebody else after a show or during a show, and then they purposely tag along and they do a lot of like downplay talking or put down talking about you in front of those people. To be fair, that's a different situation. It might be editors. It might be somebody that you both are interested in, you know, but that's a different part of your lives.
But that's so important. That's our industry. Part of our industry is word of mouth.
I think, honestly, there's only one real thing, and I'm not really sure it's an envious thing, but it definitely makes me want to just like accidentally pour coffee on people when they introduce themselves with their last names and be like, "Hi, my name is Josh Lyman, Josh C. Lyman," that kind of stuff. Like I just instantly avoid those people because they walk up into the group of other people who are currently in a conversation, and you've never met this person, and you're trying to bring them into the conversation. Well, hi, by the way, my name is Josh. You're like, I'm Josh Clarkson or Clarkman or whatever. That I just automatically just be like, how dare you not know who I am? Like that's not really, that's more ego and bravado versus jealousy. So I just can't really think of anything like major jealousy wise aside from like maybe like bringing your display up higher because the other person brought up theirs higher than yours.
You got first, David. I'm just showing off some comments because we're not going to get to everyone's comments today, but I wanted to show that they matter. So we're just keeping them on the screen. Much love to Sarah and everyone in the chat room going on. But go ahead, David. What have you experienced in the industry that you hope no other creator does after you expose it?
Yeah, I think to talk about what Josh was saying there, I think there's a fine line sometimes between confidence and bravado. And you can spot the difference fairly quickly, I think, with most people. I think that for me, if I were to have any of those experiences, it would be by accident when I'm online or Facebook or conventions or anything like that. Trying to make those connections for me is the most important thing. And if somebody comes up or to me or I come up to them and we don't make a connection, I just make sure that I stay polite and thank you for their time and then walk away. Just like I would hope anybody that came to me that maybe didn't make a connection that we would want to make would be polite and say thank you for your time and notice when it is time to be done with the conversation and then walk away. Sometimes I think it's trying to that fine line of have I been standing here for too long kind of a situation where it's time maybe to thank you for your time and then walk away. I think that is for me one of the biggest thing at conventions to know, to read the room, I guess as you would say, to know when they wanted me to talk about my book now. Okay, here we go. Let's I'll give you a quick summary of what I'm doing, but then always make sure that you ask them, tell me more about what you're doing. Tell me more about your book, especially if I'm just walking around at a con and go up to a table. But if somebody's walking around at a con and coming to my table, trying to also make sure I ask them questions about what they want and what they like. Communication is always the key to success, I feel, and being able to make sure that it's not just about buy my book, which you're ultimately there to do, but also making sure you're making those connections. For me, is the most important thing. And jealousy, I don't know if I've never had anybody argue with me about a topic, on Facebook or on Instagram or anything like that. And that for me, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe like Rob and I were talking about earlier, maybe it's a good thing sometimes because they're talking about you. They're talking about what you're talking about, and they're bringing up your name, and even if they disagree with you, they're talking about you. So good.
I had an artist
keep going. Yeah.
I had an artist who actively insulted me once. Like he was right next to me, he just sat there for like 3 hours, just insulting my art and insulting my display.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
so
did you say? Did you confront him or just kind of let it go?
I let it go for about 2.5 hours, and then I addressed him in the middle of a conversation with his clients and said, "Hey, you and I need to have a discussion at the end of today." And we addressed it and find out what the deal is. And turns out it was other circumstances. He'd seen me with another artist and he hated that artist. And so he associated with me just because of that.
It always says a little bit more about them sometimes than it does about you. It says what they're going through, and it just happens to be directed in your face, unfortunately.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it is. And it turns out that's the case, but sometimes it's just life. Other things always affect how you're going to be jealous or how you're going to behave and how you're going to respond. Sorry. JD, I apologize if I cut you off there.
No, that's fine.
Off to the side.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the ugliest things that I've been seeing basically is online, and just people just I don't know. I mean, I'm an indie guy, and that's all I really care about. I mean, I see a lot of people arguing and kvetching about politics and all this other stuff, and they're picking fights with other creators to try to build up their YouTube channels, and just and for no reason. You understand? I mean, they're literally creating controversy where there is none. Saying things about people that, whether they're true or not, what does that have to do with comics? Because in the end, isn't that what we're here for? We're here to create books. We're not here to talk about XYZ's personal life and what happened on this to this guy with this person. Who cares about any of that garbage? I care about the quality of your work. You understand? I mean, yeah, it's nice to get to know a person, but in the end, I'm going to want to check out your book and see what you produce. The only thing I would want to know from you is basically, you're not murdering people in your backyard. Hopefully, that's the one thing I could really hope for. It's like, you're not doing anything insane, but in the end, I want to know you're creating a good book, and that's pretty much it. I don't want to hear all this negativity about, some person, I don't know, doing something weird, like smacking someone else's daughter. I don't know. You understand? I don't want to hear about this stuff. I just want to know about great comics. If there's something like that going on in the background, let the police deal with it. Take them to court. That's what that's there for. I'm not here to listen to that type of garbage. I don't want to know about it.
Yep. And I could not agree with you more. And of course, jealousy and success, they're very hard to define sometimes. So like Josh was saying, sometimes we're just basing things on whispers, things we don't even understand. So few people stop and actually ask, hey, I want to get this right. Did you say this or did you do that? We always react. We spend so much of our lives just reacting without thinking. It's the fight or flight reflexes within us that sometimes lead us down dark roads. But we're going to go around the room, tell everyone where they can find us and how to get that. I guess I'll start and then we'll go over to Josh. And I've gotten lazy in my old age, so I've just made a pre-made video. So my life is now easy.
Mr. Anderson is the unboxable advocating creator known as the devilish comics creator who will tempt you with his devilish tales. He creates books about fetish, monsters, and more, and offers free spanks and hugs. He also teaches morals with farts. Check out the Comics Devil by going to MrAnderson.com.
And you can find me over at Art of Josh Lyman on Facebook, Instagram, and occasionally on Twitter. Although Twitter is not exactly my favorite home, I do try to bring some content there. I do live art streams. I'll be doing one later this evening as well, where I work on sketch covers and randomly just doodle. And you can find me over here on Comic Book Advocate Network and occasionally on Indie Vault.
Yeah, you can find me on correcthandedcomics.com. There's links to all of the multiple books we have available there. You can also find me on Facebook at correcthandedcomics.com, on Twitter at handedcorrect, and also a separate page for our ongoing series, The Offspring 00, at The Offspring 00. And you can find me on Instagram at david.whalen.1614.
You can find me at theoswaldchronicles.com or talltalesonline.com. You can also find me on YouTube under JD Calderon and as well on Facebook as JD Calderon.
I thank everyone for being part of this. It was a great conversation, guys. You all did amazing. I actually kind of feel like we tackled this the best way that you can. I hope everyone's out there being supportive of each other. We have something brand new coming for you tomorrow with some brand new panels. And I'm going to give you a teaser of a new initiative that we have that we announced the other day. And before we go, anyone have any last comments that they want to make? Because the rest of this is just going to be a video package. So anyone want to do a shout out to anyone? Go for it right
now. We solved all the world's problems today. I think we did it.
There we go. I'm just going to go outside and go back to regular world now. It's going to be the Roaring 20s again.
We did it.
Everything's perfect.
Everything is perfect.
We all talked like this back then.
Don't pay attention to anything. Everything's fine. Everything's perfect. Just go back to your seat. We're all okay. All right, guys. So thank you for seriously being here, and this is what we have coming for you guys this week.
Let me, Indy.
All right, guys, that's it. We're out. We'll see you on Monday. And remember, that's the wrong one. Oh no, I think it is my turn. All right, like I love the music. I've been home too much. You guys can see I've been home way too much lately.
Remember to be kind and share.